Well, in a previous exercise, I showed you the lab diagram, and we were talking about the different types of connections that we have. We went to router number 1, we added some passwords, and I'm still on that router. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and try to change some of the login policies. Right now, if I'm successful at typing this password in for the enable prompt, I'm in this privileged exec, this level 15 exec, and I can do anything I want to. That's not necessarily what I want everyone to do. That leaves me with kind of an all or nothing approach to my security, because from here they could go to this configure terminal like I've just done here, and they can change things, and I certainly am going to change things. I'm going to change the host name of this to router 1 so it looks a little more appropriate, and then they could make changes and they could save what they've done. In any event, that's not necessarily the best policy to have this all or nothing type of security. Now, in a better production environment, we would have a AAA server. We'll talk about that kind of option again later on throughout this course. But at least locally, if that's all we had, if we were a small corporation and didn't have the money for any type of authentication server, we'd at least want to be able to provide some level of protection here. So let me exit out of that global config. WR, those of you who are watching me type that and hit enter, I've just done a copy running config to startup config, and or at least the same thing. It was from the old write mem command. WR was short for write mem. It's well, I've been told for 8 years that it's a deprecated command, meaning we're not supposed to use it anymore. Don't use it on your exams when you're testing because you would get it wrong. But boy, it's a lot easier to type WR than the rest of it. Okay, so one of the things we want to do is take a look at some of the things that we may need, like local user accounts. So from the global config, we can create user accounts with the username password combination. And remember, these things are case sensitive. So I'm going to make a username for me, Ken, with a password. Can you guess what it is? That's right, Cisco. We're getting good at typing the word Cisco on these passwords. Now what I've done is I've created an account so that if I enable local user authentication, then instead of everybody logging in as the plain ordinary administrator, they're going to log on as a specific person, and that way I can start even keeping track, or having a hope of keeping track, of who's connected and what they're doing. So there we've just created, as I said, just the user accounts, and we could continue to do that for a while. It would be, as I said, still a better practice to put that out there into a AAA server. All right, the next thing I want to do is worry about some of the timeouts, and I showed you in a previous section how to change the timeouts for these lines that connect in. Remember, I set up the telnet lines 0 through 15, and I put in a password. If I showed you the passwords, you remember I set it up as Cisco, and then we encrypted those. But the next thing that we want to do is talk about the timeout. The exec timeout is an important aspect of what we want to put on here to make sure that we basically don't leave connections open. One of the worst things that happens in the connection world is that people will log in, leave their logins on their screen, walk away, and so suddenly I have this full administrator account in the console port, in the telnet port, or anywhere else logged in. And so the idle timeout delay, this exec timeout, is keeping them from leaving it open without activity, meaning without them actively typing and interacting with this connection. So the exec timeout that I just set, the 5 stood for minutes, the 0 for seconds. And so if you don't continue to type, then indeed we will idle out. You will lose your connection and have to log in again. The good news is that anybody that happens upon a computer that is connected, they will not be able to use that connection if they get there after that 5-minute period. So exit takes me back one level to global config. We also have the auxiliary line, and we want the exec timeout on that as well. Timeout 50. And of course the console port. Now in this case I'm not going to type in the exit as I did. It is probably good form for you to know that I should type exit and go back to global config and then go to this line console 0, but you can go directly from one to the other. by doing this. One of the reasons that they would prefer me to type in exit and the other is if you notice that when I made the change from the auxiliary line to the console line, that my prompt didn't change. It still says config-line, and there's no real easy way for you to know if you aren't still in the I should say the auxiliary line, or if you're in the console line, because I didn't have any clear indication, as I would have had I typed exit and then purposely typed the other one in. Now from here I'm going to do the same exec timeout. Just to make sure that you all see the difference, I will put a 6-minute timeout, just so you can see that when we do the show run that I really am in the console line when I did that. Another reason people make notice is that when I do the question mark from this mode, you'll see that the option for the command line right here, it does not show up as a valid command. Even though I typed it in, I like to call it a hidden command. It works, it just doesn't show up when you do the help screens. So again, that's just some of the reasons why they prefer you do the exit and do the rest. Okay, so I've also been doing this other painstaking, I call it painstaking, procedure of doing Control-Z like this to get back to this privileged exec and doing the show run commands rather than showing you how to do those through the configuration mode. We will be doing that in a bit, helping you with all of the shortcuts that I can. So here's the show run now as it's coming through here, and when we get to the end of the show run, we'll take a look at the line configurations, and there you can see that the console line is indeed 6 minutes, all the rest are 5, so it did as I advertised it would do. I was able to go from one console or one line configuration mode to another line configuration mode without having to do the exit out and come back in, but at the same time I want to make sure you understand there is a proper form as well. Alright, so I'm going to go back to this configure terminal, so I'm back into my global configuration mode here, and now what we're going to do is we're going to enable some of the other capabilities of our authentication, such as just being able to use user accounts beyond what we've done already. In fact, some of these things, before I even get in there, we should probably address some of the other levels first, and then make sure that you understand that there are different levels of what we can do. So before I get into the AAA, let's go ahead and do that next part, and that is from global config, create different levels. As I said, right now it's kind of an all or nothing. So what happens is if you know the enable secret, then you are able to log in the same as anybody else, and I don't want that kind of capability. So what we're going to do is we're going to create these privilege levels. If I could spell privilege, that's what's nice about the tab key, it helps me spell. I'm going to type in a new exec level privilege. So exec is again composed to, let me back it up, so privilege here. Notice there's all sorts of privilege options. There's all sort of configuration options, or just the configure itself. And then of course I'm talking about the exec mode versus the configuration, the global configuration mode up here. Highlighting it was easier for you, I should say. So there's the configuration mode versus that exec mode. Anyway, so there's a lot of privilege levels, but for the exec mode means getting you to type enable and going in and doing different things. I'm going to create a level 5. We'll just call it since we have some from 0 through 15, I'm going to call it level 5 debug. In fact, let me backspace up. After level 5, right, it then says, okay, put in the keywords of the command that I want to modify. So debug is what I'm going to put in here. And the next thing that we want to do is create an enable secret for that level. So that's going to be for level 5. And I'm going to make this San Fran. Yes, that's right. I'm not using Cisco because I don't want to have any confusion having Cisco on all these enable levels. So we'll start there. Now that I have that done, we'll end. I'll disable here. And now when I type in my enable, if I type in enable and I hit my question mark, notice it says, look, you can put in the level that you want, in this case level 5. The password was San Fran. And now let's do the question mark to see what commands I can try to do. And you'll see that some of the things like the global configuration mode and some of the other type of stuff that you would think I could do are not here anymore. So it's basically giving me debug capable settings that I might use, like trace route, remote logins to something else, pinging, those types of commands to help me with my debug sessions. Even though my prompt still shows up the same, I'm not in the level 15. So I'm going to again disable, and I'll type enable. Now if I don't put in a level, it's going to assume, see, watch, I'm going to type San Fran. San Fran doesn't work. So if I don't put in a level, it assumes I want the level 15, and that's what I just did. I put Cisco in, and then if I do my question mark, you can certainly see I have many more commands because it's not just kind of a debug level. So again, I don't want this all or nothing type of setup for people who may not need that kind of depth of configuration. So those are your privilege levels that, that we can work with as well. All right, so we'll stop there, showing you some of the login policies, and what we'll do is you'll see another example later on of some of the AAA policies and how we can create some different types of views to enhance what I've just suggested we could do here with levels.